Now, Gal Gadot not only didn't want to be seen with Rachel and even exchanged some words with Zegler, Gal reportedly told Zegler herself that she never wants to be seen with Zegler again on live television.
She has this underlying anger and hatred in her that always has to take it like one step too far, essentially implying that it's wrong and backwards and it's not 1937, whatever. That was like her initial spree, and everyone was like, okay, do you want to be Snow White or do you hate Snow White? Do you want to destroy Snow White?
Audiences stayed away, and even her own cast and crew are calling her out. Disney's own CEO's son posted that she hijacked the film and then deleted it after it went viral. Oh, that #1 movie in the world claim she made? Deleted. After Disney's live-action Snow White hit theaters, it didn't just spark opinions about the film itself. It reignited all the buzz that had built up around stars like Rachel Zegler, Gal Gadot, and the rest of the cast, while many still hold a special place in their hearts for the 1937 animated classic, known for its charming fairy tale feel and lighthearted romance. This new take stirred fresh debates. Fans couldn't help but ask, did the remake honor the magic of the original, or did it drift too far from what made the story so beloved?
You know, I don't need your business. You know what? Maybe Disney does. Maybe you're a tool, you're a pawn in this film. You didn't write it, you didn't direct it. You have nothing to do with the creation of Snow White.
Right.
You should shut up and do the job.
A lot of the spotlight landed on how the lead character's personality was portrayed, and whether the prince still had a meaningful role in the story. Many fans remembered how, before the film even premiered, Rachel Zegler openly criticized parts of the original, calling certain plot points outdated. Her comments didn't sit well with longtime fans who saw the 1937 version as a timeless masterpiece. Things heated up even more when Zegler remarked that the classic love story felt a little weird by today's standards.
These people, and this is the difference between a business owner or someone who does very well for themselves in the private sector to become wealthy. This person was born looking a certain way and has a God-given ability to lie for a living. That's really what acting is, to pretend.
Supporters felt it was a bold move to give old stories a modern twist, but critics weren't so sure. They believed that stripping away the classic elements that made the original so beloved could take away its magic. The debate gained even more traction when rumors began swirling that Gal Gadot, who played the evil queen, may have quietly disagreed with Zegler's take on the role. While nothing was ever confirmed, the speculation only added fuel to the ongoing conversation.
The movie went over about $250 million to make the film before marketing.
Ugh.
They had the whole dwarf midget issue where they decided they weren't going to have any midget actors, right? They were having DEI-inspired magical creatures to replace.
Yeah.
Some took this as a hint of tension over whether the film's changes really aligned with what audiences wanted from a live-action remake. Gal Gadot, known for her roles in Wonder Woman and other major films, kept things more low-key in public. She mainly focused on supporting Snow White and speaking about her villainous role, without diving into the online controversies. The difference in how Zegler and Gadot handled public criticism made many observers feel the two stars took noticeably different approaches to the backlash.
The fact that it's about the humanity and it's about nature as well, and it's a beautiful story about an amazing girl who wants to find the true self of hers.
Zegler often turned to social media, sometimes responding directly to critics, while Gadot stayed mostly focused on the film's creative side. Which approach worked better was up for debate, but fans definitely noticed the contrast in tone. Some industry insiders also highlighted the involvement of Andrew Burnap, though early press coverage revealed little about what part he would actually play.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Like, I'm being so serious.
While the film was still in production, rumors swirled that Andrew Burnap's character might either replace or rework the prince's role. Once the movie debuted, it became clear that those changes, along with Zegler's earlier comments about downplaying the love story, gave the Snow White a distinct identity from the 1937 original. Some viewers felt the romantic thread had all but disappeared, while others noticed hints of it, just presented in a much quieter way.
I watched it once and then I went on the ride in Disney World, which was called Snow White's Scary Adventures. Doesn't sound like something a little kid would like. Was terrified of it. Never revisited Snow White again.
At the same time, online conversations about Snow White occasionally brought up Gina Carano. Though her past social media controversy was unrelated, it resurfaced as a reminder of how quickly public opinion can become divided. Many pointed to Carano's experience as proof of how fast a single comment or post can shape someone's reputation in today's digital world.
So I watched it for the first time in probably 16, 17 years.
Especially when strong opinions collide in the spotlight, reactions can get intense. Supporters of the updated film often praised the choice to give Snow White more independence and a stronger sense of leadership. They liked how the story reflected modern values, focusing on courage and self-reliance rather than relying on someone else to save the day. But fans of classic Disney traditions worried that much of the original charm, its innocence and soft romance, had been replaced by a broader, more modern message.
It's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
Saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming
So
about
she's gonna die.
true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
This tension clearly showed in how the film was received, with reviews and audience reactions sharply divided. For those who disagreed with Zegler's earlier remarks, her attitude seemed to dismiss the legacy of a beloved classic. Many questioned why she would take on such a major role in a cherished franchise if she didn't seem to respect the story's original message or values.
Our rights are on the line, folks. Our reproductive rights.
Ugh.
Come on,
Okay, Cheshire Cat.
go vote blue. And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button.
On the other hand, some believed it was completely valid to take the role while pushing for a more modern take, so long as the heart of Snow White's character remained intact. The clash between these views showed just how deeply nostalgia shapes how audiences respond. Many saw the debate as part of a bigger trend in Hollywood, where reboots often face backlash for feeling too modern or overly woke in their approach.
The
Disney
original cartoon
does.
came out in 1937,
What a
and very
timeline.
evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. So
Oh,
we
what a
didn't do
shame.
that this time.
Pointing to other remakes that struggled at the box office, skeptics argued that Disney should pay closer attention to what fans actually want when revisiting beloved stories. Otherwise, they risk losing their most loyal supporters. Meanwhile, defenders of the modern approach claimed that shifting cultural values make these updates necessary, even if some viewers push back against changes to the classics they grew up with.
You had Rachel Zegler on the docket too. I think actresses should be quiet. I understand why.
Another topic that surfaced was fair compensation. At one point, Zegler spoke out about the long hours actors put in on set and stressed the importance of being paid fairly, especially when their image is used over and over. She also extended that message to support writers, calling for better royalty structures. While critics didn't oppose the idea of fair wages, the way the message was delivered sparked some debate.
Just listen to what she says. She just sat and angry. Go for it.
Some people took issue with her tone or timing, noting that she was already earning far more than many others working behind the scenes. They felt her focus on pay might come across as out of touch, considering the gap between leading stars and the rest of the crew. Ziegler's way of engaging critics on social media also got noticed. She often replied directly, which sometimes sparked long-running online arguments.
Here's what I told Bob. I said, I'm curious, Bob, don't you think messages like this is why Disney keeps having box office flops?
While some fans admired her determination and honesty, others felt alienated, thinking her tone came across as dismissive of opposing views. Speculation spread that a less confrontational approach might have kept the conversation around the film more open-minded. However, there were those who saw her readiness to stand up for her beliefs as a welcome change from the usual Hollywood PR strategies.
That's how this thing works in the world. If you talk it's going to come back.
Many of Zegler's supporters saw her outspoken nature as a positive, viewing it as a challenge to outdated storytelling tropes. By pointing out how certain classic plot devices might make today's audiences uncomfortable, she sparked a broader discussion about how modern viewers want female characters to be portrayed on screen. However, not everyone was on board with her critiques.
We're raised on it. People like me who watched Disney princess movies when the world was okay and it was acceptable for us to dream about being a princess as a woman and meeting a handsome prince. But oh no, these big bad feminists now are telling us that's ridiculous. How dare you want to meet a handsome prince?
The conversation often looped back and forth. Some praised the progressive updates, while others felt the 1937 classic was being disrespected. In contrast, Gadot took a more measured stance on Snow White's new direction. Even when asked about possible behind-the-scenes tension, she mostly stuck to discussing the filmmaking process or her role as the evil queen. Fans pointed out that her past experience with public backlash, like a certain widely criticized video, may have shaped her more reserved approach, avoiding drawn-out debates. Depending on perspective, this was seen either as professionalism or as dodging a meaningful conversation. Still, despite the heated discourse, the film drew major attention, proving, once again, the lasting pull of Disney stories.
And be swept off of your feet and live happily ever after. No, you should want to be the prince. You should want to go out and fight the bad guys with a sword. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that. I don't really want to do that.
Some in the industry believed that despite all the online drama, curiosity alone would draw viewers to the new adaptation. Others warned that the social media controversies could drown out the film's creative merits, turning off traditional fans before they even gave it a shot. The final results, reflected in box office and streaming numbers, left analysts split over whether the buzz helped or hurt the film. At the previous D23 Expo, Disney hinted at a bold new Snow White, one who leads rather than waits to be rescued. Insiders shared that the production aimed to reflect today's values by showcasing her courage and moral strength. And while the finished film did bring that to life, critics argued that in doing so, it lost the emotional heart of the original.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
From a creative angle, the adaptation clearly embraced a modern vision, one where the lead character gained strength through inner resilience and teamwork rather than romantic rescue. But reimagining such an iconic story stirred strong reactions, especially from longtime fans deeply attached to its original form. In today's fast-paced media climate, short clips of Zegler's comments, often shared without full context, circulated widely on video platforms. These snippets sometimes fueled misunderstandings, causing some viewers to see her stance as a direct attack on a beloved legacy. On the flip side, others felt Zegler's openness was simply her being honest about wanting to reshape how classic female characters are portrayed, proof of her commitment to something bigger.
She could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign. I am.
The clash between these viewpoints highlighted just how tricky it is to reinvent a beloved classic. In the months leading up to and after the film's release, conversations also touched on Zegler's age and fast rise to fame. Some critics argued that she lacked the experience and diplomacy needed for a role tied so closely to generations of devoted fans. But others believed her youth offered a fresh perspective, one capable of challenging outdated ideas and breathing new life into a familiar tale. Whether audiences found her boldness admirable or off-putting often came down to how they viewed the balance between honoring tradition and embracing change. At the center of Zegler's take on Snow White was a strong push for independence and leadership. She frequently expressed that simply waiting around for a magical fix no longer spoke to today's audiences, and that modern stories should focus on women actively shaping their own destinies.
This is Rachel Zegler, who Disney decided would be brilliant in casting because, as Rachel Zegler says, her millions of fans will line up no matter what she does to see her.
Some moviegoers welcomed the updated direction, while others felt it discarded the gentle charm that made the 1937 classic so beloved. The debate over balance remained. Was it possible to preserve the story's romantic heart while still modernizing outdated elements? Disney's marketing team worked to spotlight the film's stunning visuals and creative reimaginings to give it a fresh appeal. However, ongoing chatter about off-screen controversies often drew attention away from the film's artistic choices and production value. Many noted that had Zegler approached fan concerns with a more diplomatic tone, the focus might have stayed on what the movie offered visually and emotionally, rather than on cast dynamics or critical takes on traditional storytelling. Others, though, argued that such conversations were inevitable in today's climate.
That at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
Zegler's candor, even if sometimes direct, may have reflected her deep passion for bringing to life a version of Snow White that spoke to audiences who felt overlooked by older fairy tale traditions. The The response, however, was mixed. Some viewers praised the film's progressive updates, while others lamented what they saw as the erasure of cherished elements. In contrast, Gadot maintained a more measured tone during press interviews. With past experience navigating intense fan feedback, she appeared cautious and intentional, steering clear of controversial territory. Andrew Burnap's low profile throughout most of the promotional run added to the intrigue. When the film debuted, audiences finally saw how his role, once rumored to replace the prince, fit into the story. Though exact details remained debated, it was clear his character addressed or reimagined elements that some had long criticized in the original. Whether those changes were subtle or significant became another point of contention, especially between those who cherished the nostalgic warmth of the original and others who favored a redefined take.
This path that I'm taking right now is the path that Rachel Zegler should have taken instead of just running her mouth for the last 3 years.
On a broader cultural scale, the debate over strong female leads fed into a larger conversation about what true empowerment looks like in modern fairy tales. Some argued that simply labeling a character as strong wasn't enough, that genuine strength also includes depth and vulnerability. Supporters of Zegler's performance saw her portrayal as a meaningful departure from the 1937 template, aiming for a more layered interpretation. Meanwhile, critics warned that modernization, if handled clumsily, could feel forced and lack authenticity. From another perspective, advocates of the film's new direction maintain that evolving classic stories to reflect current values is valid, especially when the original still exists for longtime fans. However, detractors countered that many of these updates felt more like strategic branding than true storytelling growth. Within these conflicting views, the term woke surfaced repeatedly, with skeptics questioning whether the changes came from a genuine place or were just corporate. Attempts at checking diversity boxes.
God forbid a woman dream about true love. We're all just sitting around here, maybe I could be president one day. I hate men, I just want to be president. That screams Disney princess. Oh my God, I'm literally getting enraged. Once again, I feel like I'm back in 2022.
Whenever Zegler engaged passionately with fans on social media, the resulting headlines and viral reposts often eclipsed routine updates about the film itself. Observers noted that her fiery responses could risk alienating longtime Disney fans, particularly those deeply attached to the original classic. In contrast, Ji-Dayu handled press interactions with a more measured tone, likely shaped by prior experiences with viral backlash. While she acknowledged certain critiques, she never allowed them to dominate conversations about Snow White or her role as the evil queen. Many were reminded of the Gina Carano situation, which, though centered on entirely different issues, highlighted how rapidly public opinion can turn in response to controversial online remarks. Some critics drew partial comparisons, pointing out how social media intensified both actresses' public personas. However, Zegler's supporters rejected any direct link, arguing that her push for a modernized retelling was unrelated to Carano's past controversies. Still, others maintained that both cases underscored a broader truth. In Hollywood, taking bold stances, regardless of intent, often carries real consequences.
Yeah, the entire film's about a love story. It's about a love story because that's what the point of the film is, and I'm sorry that chivalry and a man pursuing you is now deemed as stalking, which now it's kind of making sense why men are opting out of the dating scene, because this is what they are hearing.
In the end, industry insiders suggested that Snow White's box office results and critical reception could serve as a key lesson in how to update beloved stories. If the film resonated broadly, it might validate Zegler's belief in a modern, forward-thinking take on princess narratives. But if it underperformed or proved divisive, critics were ready to blame the film's rocky rollout as a major misstep. Either way, the project highlighted just how polarizing these reimaginings can become, especially when they challenge emotional touchstones held dear by generations of fans. In post-premiere interviews, the creators emphasized their intention to introduce a confident, proactive heroine, someone meant to inspire viewers looking for strength and self-assurance. They were quick to add that the spirit of hope and magic that defined Disney's legacy remained intact. But whether this updated portrayal enriched the original or weakened it by shedding too many cherished elements remained the central question. For many, longtime fans of the 1937 classic, in particular, felt a deep attachment to its optimism, innocence, and musical charm. At the same time, some acknowledged that viral clips of Zegler's interviews, often shortened for platforms like TikTok, may have distorted her full meaning. She herself noted that context was frequently lost, fueling misunderstandings and sparking heated discourse about misrepresentation online. Observers pointed out how social media often reduces complex interviews to catchy sound bites, intensifying backlash and reinforcing negative impressions. Still, many chose to reserve judgment until they saw the full film. Previous Disney remakes had also faced early skepticism, but managed to win over audiences if they delivered emotionally compelling stories. According to these commentators, the ultimate verdict would come down to the film's quality. If it successfully honored Snow White's resilience while blending in a thoughtful modern touch, it could rise above the controversies. In today's climate of high-stakes movie marketing, studios know that public discourse can either create massive momentum or ignite boycotts. Whether Snow White's heated let-up attracted more attention or turned audiences away remained a hot topic, one still being debated well after the film's release. Like many of Disney's recent live-action remakes, Snow White faced early resistance from viewers hesitant to see a familiar tale reshaped. Much of the reaction, insiders noted, seemed closely tied not only to the creative decisions made, but also to how the cast engaged with the public. Rachel Zegler's bold and outspoken nature, while authentic to who she is, clashed with the expectations of some longtime fans who hoped for a gentler, more traditional approach. In contrast, Gal Gadot brought a calm, measured presence to her promotional efforts, often steering clear of anything that might stir controversy. This contrast in communication styles underscored how much an actor's public persona can influence a project's perception even before release. As the film moved further away from its 1937 predecessor, responses varied. Supporters applauded the decision to make Snow White the driver of her own story, someone proactive rather than passive. Critics, however, lamented the minimized role of the prince and the reworked romantic arc, saying it stripped away the emotional sweetness that defined the original. Some viewers simply hoped the new film would be artistically strong, regardless of how closely it followed the original plot. The music also became a flashpoint. While some classic songs returned, new compositions were introduced to reflect the film's updated tone. For traditionalists, the change felt risky, potentially relegating beloved melodies to mere callbacks. For others, the fresh soundtrack was a welcome sign of innovation. This debate mirrored the broader tension at play. Should a remake honor nostalgia, or should it embrace reinvention? Zegler's earlier comments about the 1937 version became a defining theme of the film's lead-up. Media coverage and online discussions circled around how far a classic could evolve before it lost its identity. Some argued that evolution was essential to keep the story relevant, while others believed certain classics should be left untouched to preserve their charm. Gal Gadot's portrayal of the Evil Queen added a layer of star power and thematic contrast. Her character's vanity and arrogance clashing directly with the new Snow White's confidence and independence. Critics noted this as a potentially powerful dynamic if handled effectively. Gadot's limited involvement in online discourse, in comparison to Zegler, highlighted different approaches to navigating public scrutiny. As more fans engaged in the ongoing debates, the influence of each cast member's public image became increasingly clear. Whether the film could bridge the divide between modern storytelling and traditional sentiment hinged on execution, not just in the script, but in performances as well. Some praised the fresh narrative tension between Snow White and the Queen, grounded in more contemporary themes. Others mourned the lost innocence and romantic idealism that had made the original so beloved. Marketing efforts were often drowned out by controversy, with Zegler's remarks on traditional narratives continuing to dominate online dialogue. Every cast interview, leaked photo, or plot detail sparked new debate, often overshadowing the story itself. When the film finally premiered, the reaction was mixed. Some believed it found a thoughtful balance between empowering modern themes and emotional familiarity. Others felt that no matter its artistic merit, the pre-release controversies had already fractured its relationship with a core audience. Critics noted that in today's digital age, where reactions spread instantly, remaking a classic requires more than bold ideas. It requires careful handling of the emotional legacy it represents. In the case of Snow White, the adaptation became a case study in how difficult it can be to update a cultural touchstone. On one side were calls to reflect today's values and offer a heroine who mirrored the challenges and strength of modern audiences. On the other, a loyal and protective fandom defended the simplicity and charm of the 1937 original. Every quote, from Zegler, whether offhanded or intentional, carried the risk of intensifying tensions. Observers noted that the entire rollout revealed just how powerful nostalgia is, and how delicate the balance must be when attempting to modernize a story woven into so many childhoods. Even after release, debates continued. Some viewers admitted that the film won them over despite their initial doubts, while others held firm that the production lost something essential. Regardless of its commercial or critical outcome, the new Snow White stood as another reminder of how deeply people connect with Disney's legacy, and how high the stakes are when that legacy is reimagined. In the end, even a mixed or polarizing response offered valuable insight into the challenges of blending progress with tradition. For Disney and the broader film industry, the lesson was clear. Remaking a fairy tale isn't just about updating a story, it's about respecting the emotions tied to it.